Hello and welcome to Lunch with the Editor. Today we discuss the current issue of the Outlook magazine. After the by-polls in Rajasthan, wherein two Lok Sabha seats and one assembly seat were overwhelmingly won by Congress, the opposition Congress, almost in a clean sweep, in a 3-0 clean sweep, we paused and looked at the possibilities for the next Lok Sabha polls. So we primarily looked at the cowbelt or the Hindi belt, where Hindi is either spoken or understood. That is from Jharkhand and Bihar in the east to Punjab in the west, and from Himachal in the north to roughly Maharashtra. So what we could make out is that the BJP had maximized its seats from these states. So Pranay, there is very little scope of improvement for the BJP in the cowbelt.
That will be definitely the big question, because the number of seats that they got, in the last 30 years we haven't seen that kind of a rise for any party. Last was Rajiv Gandhi when he got in 84-85 at that time, and so this was always a big question. Now how do they retain it? Meaning, whenever we face the next election, next Lok Sabha election, to keep those numbers, there is hardly any scope for improvement, right? But to retain, so even if you lose a few, by and large, if you can retain, that will be the biggest challenge, I think, for the party.
We looked at 12 states and we took 7 seats as the cutoff point. We didn't look at Uttarakhand, where BJP had won 5 out of 5 Lok Sabha seats. We didn't look at Himachal Pradesh, where BJP in 2014 had won 4 out of 4 seats. So we looked only at states where BJP had won 7 or more seats. So there were about 12 states. It is absolutely shocking to see that in these 12 states with 332 Lok Sabha seats, BJP had already, or rather we should say Modi had already won 284 seats. That is 284 out of 332. That is around 90%. So to list them, Gujarat, BJP had won 26 out of 26. Rajasthan, BJP had won 25 out of 25. That is 100% seats. Uttar Pradesh, 73 out of 80. Bihar, 31 out of 40. That is including allies in both Uttar Pradesh and in Bihar, including allies. Madhya Pradesh, 27 out of 29. They had lost just 2 seats. In Maharashtra, along with Shiv Sena, because Shiv Sena had contested with BJP in 2014 Lok Sabha polls, but subsequently for the assembly elections they had split. So with Shiv Sena, that is as NDA, BJP had won 42 out of 48. Only 2 seats for Congress and 4 seats for NCP. That is it. 42 out of 48. Chhattisgarh, BJP alone, 10 out of 11. Jharkhand, 12 out of 14. Karnataka, 17 out of 28. Assam, 50%. That is 7 out of 14. Delhi, 100%. 7 out of 7. Haryana, 7 out of 10. So now if you include Himachal Pradesh, where it had won 4 out of 4, Uttarakhand where it had won 5 out of 5, and Punjab where it had picked up 4 or 5 seats, it is like a clean sweep of the Hindi heartland, the so-called cow belt.
Absolutely. That's the question, Raj, what we are discussing, and I also I see that this is a question a lot of people have started wondering about. How do what will be the big magic that they can come up with, which will really enthuse the voters? Because you have anti-incumbency obviously, but barring that, there are a lot of expectations. How much of it you have been able to deliver, and what can you really come up with which will hold all of them together, that this is still our best bet? I think that is a big question.
And particularly because of the assembly poll results in Gujarat, where BJP just scraped through with a margin of 7 seats, 92 versus 99. It was still in double digits. And then the Rajasthan by-polls which we talked about. So if we extrapolate the assembly results of Gujarat to assess the Lok Sabha results, then it can never be 26 out of 26. It would be roughly around say 60-40 kind of a split.
And if you're looking at the trend, then it's a substantial moving away from that.
Okay. So that is why then we our colleagues from looked at various states. They toured various states and tried to find out. So what we found out was that Modi is still the trump card for BJP. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Modi is unchallenged leader of BJP. So Modi will lead the party to 2019 elections, and there is absolutely no challenge anywhere for him within the party. So that is very, very clear. Now, as far as the states are concerned, in UP, still a lot of bhakts, still a lot of support for Modi and Yogi Adityanath. So it's almost hyphenated. The Modi-Yogi phenomenon, the hyphenated phenomenon still continues to draw a lot of support, but there are issues of jobs.
The issues of jobs, and we will also have to look at some of the attacks on the Dalits, I think, which has also been mentioned. If that is a section you are totally keeping out, because large number of them came and voted for you, if they are going to move away, if they think that their security or their aspirations are not being met, or they are not being given the kind of position or status which they thought they will get under this regime, then there is a question. It starts shifting. We can debate on this issue that who's going to get it from the non-BJP parties, but moving away itself can have an impact.
And then we looked at Bihar, wherein our colleague Girdhar Jha insists that still NDA has an upper hand. Lalu Prasad Yadav has been convicted in a corruption case and he's in jail, and now the Supreme Court has asked this very pertinent question that if you cannot contest the elections, if somebody is convicted and someone cannot contest the elections, then how can that person lead a party? Lead a party of legislators or parliamentarians. So Lalu being out of the picture, Modi and Nitish coming together, BJP and JDU coming together, still that alliance is formidable. Then we looked at the very, very crucial state of Maharashtra. There, the question remains whether it would be a four-pronged contest as it was during the assembly elections, or whether BJP and Shiv Sena will contest together. Because all said and done, Devendra Fadnavis has a very clean image, and he's seen as someone who does good work and someone who has managed all the Maratha Mahar contradictions and all these caste-based attacks that had happened. So then we looked at Madhya Pradesh. Again, the opposition is in disarray there, with the Congress still not being able to decide whether the chief ministerial candidate should be whether Jyotiraditya Scindia or Kamal Nath.
These are some of the things which may, how they manage it, whether this will be a split in their support base, or they will say that if they can overcome this and say, okay, we have a chief ministerial candidate, we'll decide on that, but first we have to defeat the present government and the regime. But usually you need a face, to lead that. Rahul Gandhi is fine, but in the state you need that, and they will have to choose fast whether it's going to be Jyotiraditya or Kamal Nath.
And at the national level also, when it becomes a bipolar situation, when the electorate is forced to choose between, not just between two parties, but between two leaders, as now the case would be Narendra Modi versus Rahul Gandhi. Rahul Gandhi is now the Congress president and very clearly the opposition prime ministerial candidate for all practical purposes, whether Mamata Banerjee agrees or not. There could be certain doubts still lingering, but by and large it is a bipolar contest, going to be a bipolar contest. That also will hold a lot of uncertainty.
True. See, I mean, in between you mentioned Maharashtra, where four parties are in different ways important. Now, in the coming days, I'm sure that we are going to see some realignment of these alliances, movement between these political parties. The more and more it becomes sharper than which way it's going. Now, Rahul in 2004, what they had done, they had not really projected a prime ministerial candidate. The main attempt was to go for an alliance of the non-BJP parties. Whether that attempt this time will also succeed, that we'll decide on the prime minister candidate later, but let's first defeat the Modi regime. How convincing that will be as an argument, whether that can really enthuse the other parties to come together and do that, this remains to be seen. But yes, somewhere or the other, Rahul Gandhi is the face, more or less, a lot of people know, and that depends, whether they're comfortable with that scenario.
And as one of our viewers has pointed out, right now the big question is Karnataka, whether the Lingayat vote bank will remain intact and the base Lingayat vote bank plus anti-incumbency votes can see BJP through or not, because Siddaramaiah has also done his caste arithmetic pretty well, and he had managed the state also with considerable acumen. So this is going to be a very, very tough contest for both incumbent Congress and BJP, because in the Lok Sabha election, BJP had got considerably more seats, 17 out of 28 as against Congress.
That's true. But Siddaramaiah is a very robust candidate, a leader, and I'm sure that he will make sure, because this is not only Karnataka, I mean, losing Karnataka enthuses BJP. They can then venture into the other southern states also, whatever they may pick up from there. But that will be an entry point yet again, that we are, and Congress can't retain it. So that's a very crucial state.
So, Tamil Nadu will also be very, very interesting. With Rajinikanth being the X factor in the elections. So, we try to have a panoramic view of how the important states, the politics in those important states right now looks like. And it is fairly volatile as of now. We don't know how it is going to play out, and 2019 is far away in the sense that we have about 15 months more to go, and which is a huge amount of time, which is a very long period of time, particularly in politics, where a week is supposed to be very long. So 15 months, new initiatives, new plans, new schemes like Modi Care. I mean, if it gets implemented and if it touches the lives of millions of people.
That's a crucial one, I think. That is really imaginative and far-reaching ramification. Depends on to what extent they are able to implement that. If that happens, that can be a big ticket item for that.
So we don't know who all have game-changing tactics, game-changing policies, game-changing schemes up their sleeves, game-changing agendas, slogans. So it's very, very early, but soon after the Rajasthan polls, we just thought that we would take a look particularly at the cowbelt states. And when we look at the cowbelt states, what stares back is that BJP had maximized its gains in these crucial Hindi-speaking North Indian states. So we'll look at some of the responses we had got. Sunil Bait Mangalkar saying that, think now about Karnataka. Yes, that is what is staring at us now. Pradeep Singh saying that it's all about EVMs. Well, we don't agree. Then we wouldn't be discussing this, because in a BJP ruled state it was 3-0 against BJP. I'm talking about Rajasthan by polls. Srinivasan Muthuswamy is abusing Rahul Gandhi and hoping that Siddaramaiah will be shown the door. Well, we are not promoting anyone. That's some of those responses that we had got. That's all that we have today. Thanks for joining.